We are live on the Lacrosse the Bay podcast. I'm Schuyler Horn with my co-host Billy McNamara.
Good to be here.
We're gonna be coming to you weekly with episodes, talking all things lacrosse, and just representing Lacrosse the Bay, and also having these episodes be a space where we can just go back and forth and talk about this stuff, but also hopefully it's a resource for whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, or you just want to hear some good lacrosse banter. This is going to be the place for you. How's it going over there, Billy?
Pretty good. It's January in southern Maine, so it's just about time to start thinking about lacrosse season. Not that it ever stops; it's always going, but the outdoor one in the springtime is just around the corner. So I'm doing great.
When do you guys start practices?
We get going the end of March, so I think I could be wrong. I think Maine might be the last state in maybe Alaska. They might start later than us, but we get going pretty late. It's the last week of March, and then we wrap up. Hopefully, state championship day is mid-June, so it's coming.
Yeah. I think our youth stuff is going to start February 1st, so pretty soon here, right around the corner, and then high school practices start around the same time. So we don't have to deal with the cold like you do here in Monterey. So we're getting out there, but we'll finish earlier as well. So
right, there's a love hate with that cold lacrosse. It's good to get out there. You're happy, but you know some of the coldest times in my life probably have been coaching on college lacrosse fields in February.
yeah.
When you're playing, it's a little bit easier because you're moving and you gotta want it. But it's you're shattering sticks out there, and it can be. I remember when I was coaching at Roger Williams. It was right on a bay. Speaking of bays, and we had a really strong wind that would rip through, and there were days we weren't allowed outside because it was just with the wind chill. It was like in the negatives, but I feel like Marty K would maybe like sneak us out there anyway on some of those days. So man, it can be cold, but I know colleges. The D1 guys are rolling, I would say already, and the D3 guys will be rolling in about 2 weeks. So if you're a Northeast team, you got to be ready for it. You got to be ready for the cold.
Yeah. It certainly, I have a lot of cold weather memories, especially as a goalie, like not moving around as much, and getting hit with the ball in the cold is pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, my man, like I remember I have a distinct memory of in high school of just like the fourth quarter, I was looking directly at the scoreboard, and I think we were winning by 6 or 7 goals. So it wasn't a super competitive game, and it was like 38 raining, muddy field, and I'm just standing there in the net, just waiting for just watching the seconds tick down. It was just. It's brutal, but you know what? That's the stuff that makes you stronger. Sometimes I wish we would have a little bit of snow out here to thrash around in California, because I think it would give us a little grit.
There's a part of me that loved it for sure. I remember my first game. You'll remember this at Wheaton College. It was a scrimmage, and it must have been February 16th or something. We were playing up at Bowdoin College. You remember?
I think so. Yeah.
So it was like full on. Everybody's in sweats. Bowdoin's like kind of up there a little bit in Maine in February, and it was just like I remember just standing on the sidelines. I'm a freshman. I want to go in, put me in, put me in, put me in. Finally, it's like, yeah, I get out there, and I think we're getting smoked. But I've got this beautiful, always used a traditional pocket, and those things take a while to break in. So this thing was perfect and ready to go. It was a razor, and I had it, and it's like, this was my first goal in college, and I'm pretty sure it was like 2 seconds after I got out there. But I'm like standing open, well, I'm like behind the net, and shout out Chuck Willauer. He's coming down the field, and we kind of like make eye contact, and he throws me just this missile pass. I catch it, and I can just like hear my stick like explode, but I still have it like in the pocket. And I catch it, kind of come around the net, get pushed, throw it in the goal. Everybody's like, yeah, let's go, pumped around me. And I hold up, like, I've got like not even half a stick, and there's just like plastic everywhere. The thing just like absolutely detonated upon impact. And I just remember, oh man, I would break sticks in February, like, and it would just be devastating. So I think I started after that, like, shifting to just using like not the go-to stick early in the season, because you're just rolling the dice every time you're out there.
Oh my God. I remember my freshman year at Wheaton, it felt like what must have been the coldest season I think we ever had. And um, our coach, Peter Toner, at the time, he was, if you didn't know Peter Toner, he was like a strength and conditioning All-American at Springfield College. So this guy could bench and squat just ungodly amounts of weight. And so he would warm up the goalies. And so, needless to say, his shot was really, really hard. And I had a pile of goalie sticks in front of my dorm room because I would snap stick after stick after stick.
Yeah.
It was just, it was, it was not great. We would also, I remember we would uh, get to practice early, and we would do laps across the field back and forth to break up the ice, so that we could practice on it. That was a fun one. And just in general, I remember we'd be on this school bus going over to Mansfield High because we couldn't use the grass field at Wheaton at the time, and it almost felt like you're like on one of those boats, like storming the beach at Normandy. Like it's dark outside, you're like huddled up,
Yeah.
and just those school bus doors open up, and it was just like, all right, everybody get out. I'm like, nobody wants to get out. It's like 6 in the morning or something. But I mean, it's I love those are also some of my fondest memories because it's it's it gives you a little leather. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So this time of year, this is a funny time of year for lacrosse. It's um a little bit of limbo, but there is lacrosse. So we got, like you said, the college programs are starting to get going with their practices. Got some scrimmages, and I think February 1st is when we'll see our first NCAA games. But we've also got a lot of NLL games going on, and I think a lot of times, I certainly forget about the NLL, but I know you watch a lot of it, and I think there's a lot people can learn from the NLL. That's some of the highest level lacrosse that's being played in terms of just the complexity and the IQ of the guys that are playing out there. It's a very heady game.
Yeah, I definitely, I got into that, playing that box lacrosse when I was maybe 16, 17, and kept going with it after college. And, I've kept trying to stay as involved in it as possible, coaching. And yeah, you're right. I mean, the stick skills, are on another level, that it's you're indoors and that ball's zipping. No long poles. It allows you to do a little bit more. There's that quick shot clock, and big goalies and small nets. So it's a different game. But some of the stuff these guys do out there, it's incredible to watch. And I've been tuned in a bit. I got the opportunity to coach, or kind of GM slash be the assistant coach for the Polish national box team in the World Games at Utica, and the head coach was Dan Teat. The assistant coach was Brian Beasel, and those guys both coach for NLL teams. So Dan Teats with the Buffalo Bandits.
Mm.
I think they're back-to-back NLL champs, and they're undefeated this year, so they're doing well. And Brian's coaching for the Ottawa Black Bears, which they're kind of like they're a new team this year. They moved from New York. They used to be the New York Riptide, and they're doing pretty well too. They're 3-2. Um, Jeff Teat, Dan Teat's son, is the captain for the Ottawa Black Bears. Pretty young. I think he's maybe 24. But some may say he's the best lacrosse player in the world. I think he's maybe taken the torch from Lyle. I mean, hard to say, but Jeff Teets, you watch him play, and he's just very cerebral and skilled, and just kind of feels the game and can beat you a million different ways. Can score however he wants, and is one of the best probably passers of all time. So he's fun to watch. Lyle's amazing. I can't get enough of Lyle Thompson. He scores some amazing goals and just does some beautiful things out there. And he's always hustling, and just you can kind of just you can get hypnotized watching him. It's just kind of like the spirit of the game just out there running wild. And when some of these games really get intense and clicking, they're a lot of fun. So if you're not an NLL fan, but you're a lacrosse fan, I would say throw it on and give it a watch, because it's an amazing game.
Yeah, I think that's something for young players, especially. It's such a great opportunity to see a different version of the game. And I think there's so much that you can learn from watching it. And then honestly, if you can get the opportunity to play box lacrosse, I think there's so much that you can get out of playing it, especially going from the box to the field. We had like an indoor rink here for a little while, but the structure got condemned. It was pretty run down. Shout out to Water City Roller Rink that is currently not open, but there's a lot of charm in kind of this place. It was like, yeah, you go in and it's like, 1 out of 4 toilets were working. There's definitely like a draft going through there. But yeah, there's something about, being inside in that box. It's definitely a different experience. And I think kids getting exposed to that, whether it's watching it or playing it. And then also I think there was such a massive, it was started by Jamie Monroe when he was at Denver, recruiting Canadian box players to play NCAA field lacrosse. Was a way that a lot of these college programs were able to compete with, the Dukes, the Syracuses, the UNCs that were getting, the top whatever 50 players in the country. How does a middle of the road Division I program compete? A lot of these guys, and still do a lot of their recruiting in Canada, because these box players are just so skilled.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Jamie Monroe definitely cranked it up a notch, but you think back to the Gates won a few titles with Syracuse. Gary and Paul Gate, Tom Marichek was there, and there's always been a few, but now there's a lot more. I remember probably in high school, or maybe I was a little bit younger, like Zach Greer playing for Duke, and he could just score a million goals, catch everything you threw at him and put it in the net. And like Garrett Billings down at Virginia. Usually they were like, attackmen, finishers. I want to say there was a guy at UNC back in not UNC, NC State, that like set a bunch of records back when they had a team. Was it like Mark Cochran's dad or something? That's where we need our Jamie pull it up. But like,
Yeah.
Canadians, they've always kind of been there's been always been a few of them, and then I think you nailed it. Like Jamie Monroe, like started, just bringing a bunch of them to Denver. And now I think it's, pretty common to have a decent amount of Canadians on your team. I know like RIT up in Rochester, they've won some D3 titles, and they're like over half their teams from Canada.
Mm.
So, yeah, those guys growing up playing box, your skills are, I think, a little bit sharper in there. It's safe to say, and especially like if you're a defensive player, no long pole, so those guys grow up playing with the short pole and
Yep.
develop those stick skills. And, but yeah, it's fun. I grew up playing, ice hockey too. And I think, the box lacrosse is kind of similar. You're playing on a rink and you got the locker room. So you got that kind of, there's, they drop the gloves, and it's got a little bit of that like hockey edge to it, which is
Yeah.
pretty fun.
Yeah. I remember in high school, I played on a travel team, as we did at the time to get recruited. And I would play fall ball a lot just because like I was always looking to play more. And so I was playing on this travel team, or it was kind of like an all-star team from Connecticut, where we had won this tournament down in Connecticut. We're feeling pretty good about ourselves. So we go up to the turkey shoot in Ithaca, New York, and like we had a pretty solid team. It felt pretty good, and we go up there, and the first team we play was a Canadian team, and I'm watching these guys warm up. Like they did not look athletic. Like I distinctly remember in line drills, these guys were basically like half walking. This one guy had like his boxers like hanging out of his shorts. Like I was just like, what is going on? Like we are going to just absolutely torch these guys. And the whistle blew and they cut us up. I mean, they were just so skilled. I remember the one-handed thing. It was, as a goalie, it was just so annoying where these guys would be kind of like spinning around and keeping this ball in one hand, and then they would still shoot it like from all kinds of different ways. And it was just so it was such an eye-opening experience because we were used to playing this certain style of lacrosse, right? We were used to playing field lacrosse, this version of the game, and yeah, we went up there and we were fish out of water, and they were on another level.
You guys
So
were turkeys. You're getting shot.
we were we were turkeys that tournament. But that's such a great experience because it's we didn't really have box where I was in Connecticut, so it was just such a good experience to go up there and see that and be like, whoa, and ever since then, as a keeper, like, I've known to watch out for that and what I'm getting into when I've got box guys, playing offense. So
Yeah, I mean, like, real quick, but like literally same thing. I'm playing in high school for the Top Gun Fighting Clams, and we're just, we think we probably have 10, 12 D1 commits on our team, and we're winning all these games. And I think it was the final at this tournament in Hartford. We're playing the Edge, which is a Canadian team. They've got like 2 subs, and same thing. It's like, oh man, we're gonna like kill these guys, and they beat us up pretty good. And it was like, they weren't even like running; they were just moving the ball. They were all like switching positions. Like this one kid was like 5'2", and he like had a long pole, and then he like threw the long pole to another kid, and then went down to attack and scored like 3 goals in 5 minutes. And like it was like, what the hell is happening here? And then yeah, it was like just that was my first kind of experience playing a bunch of Canadian kids on a field. But yeah, those skills, they got them.
oh Canada.
Yeah.
So with the season coming up, I was thinking, we've got I think we'll have some some coaches that'll end up tuning in. So thinking about, okay, what are some things that, we as coaches are getting ready, or I was thinking like, okay, for you, what are three things as a high school coach that, you're really thinking about going into the season? Like what are the three things that you really have to have locked in to feel like, you're starting the season off and or going through the season in the way that you want to?
Yeah, I mean, for me, so this is going to be my fourth year going into coaching the high school in York, Maine. And actually tonight, I've got my first kind of coaches meeting, getting together with
Mm,
and Mark and Nico, the two guys that I've been the past couple of years been coaching with. So I mean, number one, I think you sort of get dialed in with your with your staff. You really um, depending on your program, but like we've got like 50, 60 kids, and it's just um, if you're trying to be as successful as possible, I think you need good people, and you got to kind of put your heads together with them and get on the same page. So I think number one is just kind of getting on the same page with your athletic director and your staff, and getting your schedule locked in and all those kind of nuts and bolts out ahead of time. And then after that, you're sort of looking at we lost last year double overtime in the state championship game, so we're coming off a heartbreaker of a year. So you want to kind of think about, as a coach, what your goals are for the team, and who you got, and what the pulse is, and on the team's kind of heartbeat and the personalities you got, and how you want to approach it. I think from like just again, like a big picture. What's the goal here? How am I gonna get these guys ticking? And number three, you kind of along with your coaching staff, hopefully, if you got good people helping you, start to map out that sort of preseason plan, and whether you want to do conditioning tests, stick skills, what kind of how you want to structure practices, and what kind of drills you're looking at, and scrimmages, kind of like find a little timeline for the beginning of the year to try to get these guys to where you want them to be. And again, like, every team's going to be different. Every coach is going to be different. It really depends on what kind of crew you're working with. I think that's the beauty of it. I've played on a lot of teams and coached a lot of teams, and they're all unique, and every year is new. So it's exciting. It's always a lot of fun, and if you love lacrosse, you're getting excited about this time of year. So
yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think I'm going to be coaching high school and youth, but I think youth is going to be the majority of where my time is spent. And so the things that I'm thinking of are, number one, I'm thinking about who my team parent is. Um, just from like, you know, from, we as coaches, a lot of times and I've fallen into this trap before where it's like, um, what we want to do is coach the game and practices and things like, and run our practices and compete and really create a culture with our team and get the most out of the spring season. But a lot of times we don't realize that there are so many things that come along with that we don't want to deal with, that take us away from doing that stuff. And so a team parent is a great way especially at the youth level, to free up your bandwidth to make sure that you're focusing on the game, focusing on the kids, and then you have somebody who's kind of looking out for all the other things that are important to families. So thinking about a team parent, I think the other thing is the having a really consistent practice plan for my practices. So I basically I have an hour and a half practice template that I run, and it has different categories, and I'll go through them. But basically, you swap out. There are different drills that fall into different categories, and then you kind of swap in and out. What you feel like you need to work on, what makes sense. But with the idea that I'm a big believer in, especially at the youth level, consistency, so that the kids know what to expect. So you're spending less time kind of having to wrangle or having to communicate expectations. When things are really baked in, consistency, I think kids respond well to that. And then also that's like when it comes to development, I think consistency is king. We like to think that a big pregame speech is what makes the difference in a game, but the reality is that if you're looking at the arc of your season, it's how you're developing through each practice. So my practice starts with our dynamic warm up. The first 15 minutes of practice is basically like passing around, dynamic warm up. But we're done with that by 15 minutes in, and then from there we go into what I call heart rate. Which is where we would play some type of game or do some type of ground ball drill where it's like whether it's keep away or 2-on-1 ground balls, something simple like that, where kids are just getting out there and they're playing, not necessarily having to think too much, having some goals in terms of what you're trying to get out of the drill. But the thing that I'm really trying to get out of that segment is getting the kids some repetitions, but B, getting some sweat on their brow, so they feel like they've gotten in the mix, to try and kind of get them to a place where now I can get them to focus. So then from heart rate, we'll go into skill work, which is basically like we'll do two blocks of skill work. So whether it's stick work and then going into shooting, or stick work and then going into some team skeleton stuff, really getting the kids to a place where they can focus, and learn something. And then from there, we'll work in a water break at some point. And then from there, we'll go into what I like to call competition. So some small-sided games where we're still working on concepts, but the drills where the kids are playing, they're competing, having fun, and then finishing it with what I call play. So if you're talking about third and fourth grade kids, usually it's just like a scrimmage. You just throw them out there and go. If we're talking seventh and eighth grade, probably more like half field 6v6. And so working through concepts there as well. But I always like to have, a portion at the end of practice where kids have the opportunity to play and use the stuff that we've been teaching, having a place where it's kind of like the sandbox where they get to use that stuff and coaching them up in that, but not going too crazy. And then the last thing I would say that as a youth coach that I'm this is just kind of like a more of a one thing that I can't go without is a whistle. If you're a youth coach, really if you're any coach, and you don't use a whistle, and maybe that's not your thing, but a whistle is a great way to save your voice. It's a great way to create consistent communication with the kids, with the players, and it's just it is a tool of a coach for a reason. So if you don't have a whistle, get one. Even if you carry it around for the first couple practices and you don't even know why you have it, eventually you'll start to use it, and it will save a lot of energy. So
no doubt, need the whistle.
Gotta have the whistle.
But yeah, that all sounds, The future is bright on the Monterey Peninsula. That's a good. I want to get out there. I want to get out there and play. That sounds like a good practice.
Hey, the season is right around the corner. Just getting those last minute signups in, and then we're gonna be getting after it. So cool. Well, I think that wraps up our first episode of the Lacrosse Debate podcast. Uh, Thank you for listening, and please share with anybody you think that would get something out of this stuff. We're excited to continue to share and talk lacrosse all season long, and
And bring some guests on. We're gonna bring on some interviews. So stay
that's
tuned
right.
for those. If you have anybody that you think would be a good interview, pass them along. We'd love to have them, but we also plan to, maybe not every week, but we'll be doing this weekly. So, we'll throw in some interviews on the podcast as well, so we can get some different voices here and perspectives from, coaches, players, and people around the lacrosse world. So looking
That's right.
forward to it. Yep.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time. Oh.